Today, we'll explore wedding fails and embarrassing family drama, and together, we'll dive into exciting content, share experiences, and maybe learn a thing or two. Without further ado, let's jump into today's adventure. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the dress code? My brother is getting married in a few months, and his future wife recently asked me to be a part of her bridal party. I was thrilled and excited to be included. But then she informed me that the dress code for the bridal party was gender-specific, with women expected to wear dresses and men expected to wear suits. As someone who identifies as non-binary and is more masculine presenting, I'm uncomfortable with conforming to a gender binary that doesn't accurately represent me. I brought this up with my brother and his fiancée, but they insisted that they wanted all their guests to adhere to the dress code, regardless of how it made them feel. I ultimately decided that I did not want to attend the wedding, as I did not feel comfortable being pressured to conform to a gender binary that doesn't accurately represent me. My brother and his fiancée are now upset with me, accusing me of being difficult and not willing to compromise. After a fight with them, I found out they went behind my back and involved my mom. She called me yesterday and told me I can put aside my identity for one day to make the day special for my little brother. I now feel bad and didn't realize something as small as the clothes I feel comfortable wearing would cause a rift within my family. So am I the a-hole for refusing to go to the wedding? No, I don't think so. You weren't yelling about this. You weren't being all, well, if this isn't the case, then I'm not going to go. You said perfectly and calmly, I was hoping you would say this perfectly and calmly, I don't feel comfortable with this. And it sounds like you've had issues with this before, with your gender identity. And they seem very uncomfortable with you about this. I don't think this is the first squabble that you've had. And maybe it's not targeted towards you, but it's kind of weird that they are specifically enforcing a specific dress code based on gender. It's a little creepy, to be honest. If you're dressing well, you're not dressing like a slob, I don't see the problem here. Not really the a-hole, no. Story 2. An entitled mother insists that I share my Nintendo Switch with her child on my flight. The scene is a Southwest airline flight. I was sitting in a window seat next to two lovely women, and directly horizontal from us was an empty seat, a mom, and her son. The flight was taking off. For those who don't know, you're required to stay seated and keep your seatbelts on for the beginning of the flight until the captain says otherwise. I was strapped in my seat and decided to take out my Nintendo Switch from my carry-on beneath my feet. "Excuse me, ma'am." I didn't realize at first that the mother in the seats horizontal from me was trying to get my attention. She unbuckled her belt and moved to the empty seat by the aisle, closer to me. "Ma'am, with the video game." I lifted my head, but the stranger next to me nudged me as well. "That lady wants to get your attention," the woman next to me muttered. I turned my head to see this woman leaning across the aisle with her hands on the armrest of the aisle seat in my row. "Sorry," she began. "I just wanted to know if there was any way that my son could use that game for a little while." "I'm sorry," I began. "My Nintendo Switch is just really important to me. I don't feel comfortable giving it to anyone I don't know. I don't even let my sisters play with it." I was going to continue, but the woman cut me off. "Oh, my sons are not like most kids," she replied. "He's not destructive. His cousin has one of those, and he knows how to play." She smiled and set her hand out. The two women seated next to me looked at me as if they were also in disbelief. "I'm sorry," I said again. "I just don't feel comfortable. I brought it for myself." "How old are you?" the woman said in a huff, retracting her hand and slapping it on her lap. "I'm 25, but I don't see how that matters," I replied, growing exceptionally uncomfortable. "Well," she began, clearly sounding agitated. "My son is 8. This is an hour and 45-minute flight, and he just wants something to do. He can't see it for a few minutes?" "No, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm sorry, but I'm expecting you to understand since this is my property." I put my head down and I unpaused the game, as to ignore anything she had further to say. "Are you serious?" She seemed genuinely livid. "Well, insert child's name. Sorry, buddy, not everyone knows how to share," the woman said to the kid next to her. Her child started whining and kicking the seat in front of him. "Thanks for this," she said to me. "A sweet kid just wants to share with you, and you're being ignorant about it." Before I even opened my mouth, one of the ladies in my row snapped back at her. "How dare you bring that energy on this plane? She told you so kindly that she doesn't feel comfortable with passing her electronics to a stranger." The mother wasn't having it. "She's an adult and can't share with a child for a few minutes of a nearly 2-hour flight?" "You should have brought something for him to do then," the woman in my row responded. It shut her up good. At the end of the flight, the woman collected her luggage from the overhead bins and said, "I hope you're happy going against God's word, not sharing with a child." Some of the people around us giggled. I'm sure that they all overheard the drama at the beginning of the flight. I've come across some entitled people in my life, but this strange lady took the cake. I was expecting a flight attendant to come around and tell her to go back into her seat and buckle up, and there was going to be some trouble there. At the beginning, she asked nicely, but then just put her hand out, and the way the kid reacted, just throwing a tantrum and kicking the seats, I feel that was the right decision. That switch would have come back to the woman broken. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for outshining the bride? So I, 27 female, am a black African woman. I'm living and working in Germany for a fixed period on secondment. While here, I became quite friendly with a colleague, 60, female, and she invited me to her daughter's wedding. I was excited as I've never been to a white wedding. I asked if there was a dress code or color scheme to adhere to since it wasn't specified on the invite. I was told the code is dress to impress. Bet. Day of the wedding, I understood the assignment. I wear my traditional clothing, which is really beautiful and obviously not German. The garment is green, so no problem there. Or so I thought. I get a lot of questions and compliments at the wedding, which I genuinely downplay because it's not my day. My colleague seems colder than usual, but I pay it no mind since she's the mother of the bride and could be preoccupied. The bride is downright rude to me, but again, I give her grace. I congratulate her and thank her for including me, and I get a tight in response. I keep to the edges of the room as the music isn't really my vibe, and I'm just observing how European weddings work. I leave around 8 after 5 hours and go home before the wedding finishes. Monday, I walked into whispers in the office. People actually strangely and more reserved than usual. An office friend pulls me aside and fills me in. The bride's mother is fuming. My outfit was too extravagant, over the top, and inappropriate. I drew attention from the bride and commandeered the room. I was rude and disrespectful. She told people all about it, apparently. I approach mother of the bride and ask to speak, but she says she has nothing to say to me. I ask her why she has to say to everyone else about me, but not to me, and she calls me an insolent child. I explain to anyone who scolds me that this was my first white people wedding. I specifically asked what to do and what to wear and followed the guidelines. Where I'm from, there's no such thing as outshining the bride. Weddings are a fashion show and a chance to wear your best and brightest clothes. They told me this isn't Africa, which was racially coded, and people here have manners. I laughed and told that person to go to hell. So she's telling people I lack remorse for my behavior. I'm wondering if I really am the a-hole, though. No, not really. A lot of people really liked your outfit and were making comments about it, and you seem to keep to the sides of everything. This woman told you to dress to impress. You did. Dress to impress. How, anything else, if she had to say, don't outshine the bride, that would have been another story. But you understood the words, and it's kind of her fault for miscommunicating. No, I don't think you're the a-hole. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for confronting my cousin about stealing my dress the night before her wedding? I, 27 female, am getting married later this year and announced a tentative date a while ago. Seemingly out of nowhere, my cousin, 28 female, decided to get married exactly 1 week before I was planning to. I've been trying on wedding dresses for the past couple of months. My cousin's mother asked to see some of the dresses I had tried on, so my mother sent her a video of one of our final pics. I didn't think much of it as I wanted my extended family to feel included. A few weeks pass, and I get a call from the boutique I had paid a deposit for my dress at. They inform me that my cousin and her mother had come to their store with the video of me and my dress and asked to get something exactly like it. One of their sales associates sold them the exact dress in a cream color instead of white, which was my dress's color. The store owner was very apologetic and offered a refund since she realized 2 girls from the same family can't wear the same dress. I'll likely have a lot of the same guests at my wedding. I was in disbelief and was hoping it was a terrible mix-up. I immediately messaged my cousin and casually asked to see the dress she purchased. For weeks, she created stories about either not finding a dress or having it altered so she couldn't show me. Finally, the night before her wedding, she invited my mom and I over for some last-minute help. Again, we asked to see her dress. She finally caved in and brought it out. Of course, it was the exact same dress. I was extremely hurt and asked why she would go out of her way to steal my wedding dress, knowing full well her wedding is before mine, which means everyone would see it on her before me. I said if she had spoken to me beforehand, I might have chosen to let her have the dress, but she went behind my back and chose to lie about it repeatedly. Things got heated, and I ended up leaving. I'm not sure if I even want to go to her wedding tomorrow after the stunt she and her mother pulled. Everyone in my family thinks I overreacted and should have kept my mouth shut until after her wedding instead of creating animosity the night before her big day. Am I the a-hole? Hopping on to answer a few frequently asked questions. I accepted the refund and will be wearing a different, much more fabulous dress to the wedding. My original post mentioned that the wedding date I announced was tentative. When my cousin went ahead and booked her wedding exactly a week before mine, I changed my date because it would be far too inconvenient for our family and friends to arrange clothes, transportation, hair and makeup, etc. back to back. Some commenters think I should have confronted my cousin the second I found out about her stealing my dress. I did, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt by having a conversation first. She dodged showing me her dress for weeks, but by that point, I had already returned my dress. Only was going to say something after I confirmed she did, in fact, steal my dress. I didn't want to make a scene if it turned out she didn't actually copy me. To the commenter saying, "It's just a dress?" My cousin will likely be sending her wedding photos to everyone in our extended family. At least 50% of my guests will be the same as hers, so they definitely would have noticed if we wore the same dress, and I would look like an imitator. As much as I'd love to show up wearing the same dress to her wedding, I would definitely be exacerbating the whole ordeal. I should have known that after changing my wedding date to accommodate my cousin, she would have assumed I would accommodate all her other BS too. I didn't mention this in the original post as I wanted unbiased answers, but my cousin and her mom have copied me my whole life. Whether it's buying similar clothes, copying my style, etc., they never compliment me, yet copy everything I do. I wasn't the one who sent them the video of my dress. My mom did. She assumed there was no way they would ever copy my dress. The cousin and her mom are from my dad's side of the family. I'm assuming that's why my mom isn't making as big a deal as she should. I think if you knew all of this about the dress and about them copying you, and you knew all of it, if you wanted to help out just before the wedding and notice the dress, I think you would have just had more fun just kind of stringing it along, just hinting about seeing the dress and seeing how much help you could get away with or how long you could stay there while she avoided bringing the dress out. Not quite an a-hole. If you're confronting it with a calm and level head, that's okay, I think. Don't just blow up at her. If you already had a better dress for this wedding, I would say probably maybe just let it go at that. So, and if you said it was a more fabulous dress, then you're doing good. I think you should let her know that her behavior is bad and untolerated, of course, but just blowing up at her probably isn't the way to go. Story 2. Not my revenge, but my professors against cheaters. I took the final for an engineering class this morning. Usually, 1 or 2 people will go to the bathroom during class. However, for totally unknown reasons, about half the class needed to use the restroom during the exam. Obviously, a vast majority of them were looking up the answers on their phones. This irritated me, but I just stayed focused and barely finished since it was a hard exam. I remembered that there was one particular problem that was only barely related to the stuff we went over in class, where Part A was fairly easy, but I had no idea how to do Part B. I didn't fret over it too much since that was part of only 5 points out of 100. While our professor, who is on the older side and I would have thought was somewhat ignorant of technology, sent us an email just now explaining his diabolical plan to catch cheaters. Many of the students in the class use Chegg, a website that has answers to lots of homework questions if you're not familiar. To be fair, I have an account too, though I only used it for studying and checking homework solutions. Anyway, he explained that he was tired of people going to the bathroom and looking up answers on their phones, so he made the question I mentioned earlier as a trap. He purposely made Part B impossible to solve, and about a month before the final, he got a teacher's assistant with a Chegg account to ask that exact question, which was distinctly worded to be unique. He then created his own Chegg account and answered the question with a hogwash solution that seems right at first glance, but is actually fundamentally flawed and very unlikely that someone would make the same assumptions and mistakes independently. He said that out of 99 exams, 14 of them fell for the trap, and that everyone who had his wrong solution on their exam was given a 0 and reported to the university for violating the academic honor pledge they signed on the front. He also sent an email to all the other professors in our department giving them the list of cheaters. Forgot to mention, he gave full credit on Part B of the question to everyone else. And now, 5 months after this, I come back. I'm glad this post is getting attention, and I'm once again receiving messages from people wanting to get in touch with the professor or students from the class. So now that this story has run its initial course, I'll burst everyone's bubble by admitting that I mostly made this story up. It's based on a real incident that happened in my department a couple years ago, but I wasn't in the class personally. I only heard about it third hand from someone I didn't know that well. So while the general plot and end result of the story is true, I changed some details to keep the professor in school anonymous and took creative liberty in writing it from a first-person viewpoint. Unfortunately, the part about my department letting students go to the bathroom during exams with their phones was true, and is still true to this day. And to my knowledge, the incident this is based on is the only time that a professor actually took a stand against this awful policy. So yeah, I don't know the professor personally since the class he taught is not part of my program's curriculum. So I wouldn't put anyone in touch with him or anyone else who knows about the real incident to expose his identity. Before anyone reports this for being fake, I will once again stress that while I changed the details, the actual events played out in a similar way, and the real professor did in fact get his revenge on the cheaters. It's kind of real, but I kind of feel ripped off, don't you? It is a genius solution, infiltrating the source of the cheater's fountain of A's, if you will, the fountain of answers or something. But yeah, that's very brilliant, very devious, and good on him for learning about technology and learning about what students use these days to try and get in touch with them. Cool. Story 1. Neighbors entrusted me to look after their pets and house, but haven't come back for a year. In June 2019, my neighbors came to my door. I had some experiences with them. They invited us for a barbecue not long after they moved in. They asked me and my wife if we would look after their pets and their house for the next 3 weeks, as they needed to return to Taiwan as his mother was expiring. They even left me $500 for food for their 2 German shepherds and their cat. I don't know what happened to them, but they just never came back. I don't know if they ended up in some sort of prison or decided to just not come home at all. Today I found out their basement had flooded, probably sometime within the last week. Apparently a pipe burst, but the entire basement is completely fracked. I paid to have the leak fixed, and I spent all of today using my shop vac to drain the basement to the best of my abilities. Between this and one of their dogs needing surgery, I've spent thousands of dollars of my own money, and frankly, the damage to the basement was pretty awful. I don't have their insurance paperwork and don't really know if I can even make a claim for them. On top of this, his 2 German shepherds, while they're amazingly good boys, it's becoming almost too much for us to handle. Their last name is extremely common, and their Facebook profiles are private, which gives me very little avenue to tackle this down. Timeline: June 7, 2019. Neighbors asked me if I would look after their pets and their house while they were handling the passing away of their mother back in Taiwan. Tells me 3 weeks at latest. June 1st, 2019. Neighbors sent me an email saying they needed some additional time to handle his father's affairs. He apologized and said he would be back by July 15 at latest. July 21st, 2019. Sent him an email asking what was going on. Explained how we were going on vacation in August. Never got a response. July 31st, 2019. Tried calling him on his cell phone. It was no longer in service. August 14th, 2019. Went on vacation. Had my brother look after all 4 dogs for the next week. September 2nd, 2019. Emailed him again. No response. September 3rd, 2019. Tried to reach him and his wife via Facebook using the private message feature. September 6th, 2019. Ended up moving his 2 dogs and 1 cat into our house as they seemed extremely miserable. I ended up disassembling part of our adjoined fence to allow his dogs to use their outdoor area. November 19th, 2019. One of his dogs started showing signs of being ill. Bringing him to the vet, turns out he is suffering from a medium severity case of IVDD. He ended up requiring surgery, which we paid for. January 21st, 2020. I sent another email and never got a response. Today, when I was bringing his mail into the house, I noticed it smelled pretty awful and I quickly discovered his basement had about a foot of water in it. Questions. What exactly is my level of responsibility in this? I agreed to look after it for a few weeks or a couple of months at the most. It's been almost a year now. Is there anything I can do? Location, Ontario, Canada. Sorry, some other points. I'm assuming they have some sort of auto payment for bills set up because they still have hydro and cable and internet. I'm unsure of where exactly the husband worked. I know he said he was an engineer, but I can't find his profile, so I don't know what company. Their last name is a very common name, common like Wong, which gives me tons of Facebook results. I don't know. Again, this is one for those people in the comments that have insurance or have legal expertise. I mean, with everything done taking care of this house, I mean, what is the recourse? I just don't know. I mean, does he own the house now? Are they just going to come back and just not pay them back for anything that's going on? Are they in trouble? Are they being jerks, or are they just really in a lot of deep trouble for this, the people that are in Taiwan? I really don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, this was 2020. There has to have been a follow-up on this story. I hope someone finds it. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to get my girlfriend an expensive engagement ring? I've, 26 male, been with my girlfriend, 26 female, for 4 years, and we've recently been talking more and more about marriage. Although my girlfriend grew up relatively well off, for the time I've known her, she's been pretty low maintenance. She's never cared about designer brands, rarely buys new clothes, and the jewelry she owns was gifted to her. I have a decent job now, $80K a year, and I've been saving for a while. But growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money. My girlfriend and I have always seemed to be on the same page when it comes to saving money. I assumed she would be fine with a more affordable ring. When I started looking into rings, I discovered moissanite rings, which look similar to diamond rings but are much more affordable. I was looking at rings in the $1,500 to $1,800 range. When I mentioned this to her, she insisted she wanted a real diamond ring and sent me links to a bunch of diamond rings that she liked. The prices ranged from $6,500 to $10,000. I told her that I wasn't willing to spend that much. She seemed genuinely mad and said it wasn't that expensive. We got into a pretty big argument over it. I told her that it was ridiculous to ask me to spend that much, and that I thought she was more than reasonable than that. She said I was being cheap and that I could afford it, and that I was basically saying she wasn't worth it. I told her no one is worth a $10,000 ring. Eventually, my girlfriend said she didn't care and that I should get whatever ring I want, but she's clearly still mad, and I know this is going to be an ongoing argument. I'm a bit frustrated because this seems out of left field. I've always known marriage is super important to her, but I didn't realize she'd insist on a diamond ring. So I talked to my older sister about it, who, despite agreeing diamond rings were stupidly priced, sided with my girlfriend and said if I could afford it, she didn't see the big deal. She added that my girlfriend has done so much for me, and I was being an a-hole about this. What my sister means by my girlfriend doing so much for me is that she was really supportive when I was in a serious car accident 4 years ago. I broke multiple bones and required a few surgeries. Although where I live, most health care is covered, I was unable to work for a while and had expenses I wasn't able to pay. I had been dating my girlfriend for only 6 months at the time, and she was really there for me. I couldn't pay my rent, so she let me move in with her for free and help pay for a few expenses and for physical therapy I needed. She also helped me get a job with her uncle, who was the VP of an insurance company. It was an entry-level position, and I had a business degree, so it's not like I was unqualified. Obviously, I've thanked her for all she did for me, but it's not something we talk about much. I don't think I'm obligated to buy an expensive ring because she helped me out a few years ago. But if my own sister said this, I'm guessing my girlfriend must feel that way as well. Am I the a-hole here? You didn't communicate. There's a lot of these stories that I read. You just have to communicate with the person. She may be very almost thrifty about a lot of other stuff, but when it comes to the wedding, that's going to be different. It's probably going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and this wedding ring is going to also conversely be something that's going to last the rest of one of your lives anyway, if not both of them. So yeah, you needed to talk first about how you wanted the wedding to go before you started looking at rings. That's about it. That's about all I have to say about that. Story 2. Girl who has a restraining order against me got hired at the company I work at. I currently have a restraining order against me. Turns out the girl who has the restraining order against me just got hired at the company. I know this because I've seen her in the lobby of the building. She has told me that if I don't leave the job, she will call the cops on me. I probably won't be able to get another job at this time, especially with my background. Am I legally obligated to leave my job? What is the protocol in situations like this? Please leave legal advice only. I have already had plenty of psychiatric help. I really don't know. I mean, there could be a lot of ways this goes. This may be the only place she could have gotten a job, or it could have gone the other way and she actually might have targeted this person out of spite and gotten a job where he works at. I don't know any of the details. And again, I am not a legal person, so I can't give any advice. Maybe anybody else could give some advice on this. I'd consult a lawyer. I mean, yeah, I know you're looking for more legal advice before you consult a lawyer, but you're going to have to shell out for one, I think, in the long run. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for begging my girlfriend to uphold a sexist tradition so she can make a good first impression? I have a big family that's incredibly close. We have big family dinners every few months where we all meet at my great-grandfather's estate and eat together. Typically, how this works is that the women go cook for the time they're there and the men don't, which I am fully aware it's sexist as hell. That being said, I'm one of the youngest people in my family, and my protests mean literally nothing. Some of those women choose not to cook. However, this is usually met with a level of ostracizing. The women who don't cook live with long-term girlfriends, so they kinda already have a good family relationship doctored in. When I have seen new partners not cook, it's gone bad. Like completely ostracized, not speaking, cattiness, rudeness, etc. This dinner will be in 2 weeks, and my girlfriend was asked if she would attend. Initially, she said yes, which is great. I want for her to meet everyone, and for everyone to get used to her being around. But when I explained to her the tradition, she was understandably bothered. I told her that I understood where she's coming from. However, it was best for everyone if she just played along. I told her this isn't a permanent thing and that I'm only asking her to do this so that she can avoid bad treatment from the rest of the family. This is her first impression, and I don't think it's best if we cause waves. She told me that it's unacceptable and that if she has to do that, she will not be going. I've tried to find a compromise with her on this, but she won't budge and she's ticked at me. She told me that if I think it's acceptable to make her do this, I'm just as bad as everyone else. While my point is that she needs to make a good first impression. Am I the a-hole? Kind of. I mean, you're asking your partner to do something that she finds very uncomfortable. And yeah, even you realize that this is really kind of out of line. I mean, you said this isn't going to be for long, and this is going to be a big family tradition. So how do you not expect this to last longer? Is this going to count against her? Are people going to be catty to her if she decides not to attend? I think you'd want the good first impression to be something else, like you inviting the parents out to dinner or something like that. Kind of. But I can understand you're between your family and a person who you really care about. I know that can be tough. Story 1. Entitled mother threw a fit and made her kids cry because I didn't take them on vacation with me. A little over 2 years ago, I won a raffle at my job for an all-expense-paid family vacation. It wasn't some super fancy prize to Disneyland or anything crazy like that. It was just a nice 3-day stay at this little beach house inn place. It was for 4 people, and I asked around and found out the package deal cost just under $400. Pricey for me, but not so much for the older or more experienced coworkers I have. I, of course, asked my boyfriend at the time to go, but he couldn't take time off school. I'd wanted to take my single friends and make it a girls' trip type deal, but they either couldn't because of work or other in real-life responsibilities at the time, which I was sad about but understood. Since that plan was a bust, I decided to see if my sister and her 2 little kids wanted to come. I figured they'd enjoy it, and so would my sister, and I didn't want to waste the tickets. Well, I went down to visit my family that weekend, intent on asking Sis if they'd want to come. But the longer I was there, the more I hated the idea. By the time I was packing up to go home, I knew I wasn't inviting them. I loved my niece and nephew, but they were super bratty back then. They're doing better these days, because my sister never disciplines them. Ever. I love them, but she lets them get into everything and never watches them unless someone, either me or our mom, yells at her to get off her butt and watch them. Visiting is always a chore because I end up watching them to give our mom a break. It's pathetic. And like every time I visit, my sis dumped them on me the entire time, like usual. And by that point, I knew if they came, it would turn into me babysitting them while she had a vacation. So I didn't mention the trip or vacation and just said goodbye before leaving. Next day, I called my good friend Megan because she has 2 kids, older than my sis's kids and very well behaved. And she's a single working mom who I figured could use the vacay. I asked if she would be free for XYZ days, and she was like, yeah. So I offered to invite her along with me on this vacation if she would pay for the gas to get us all to and from there, while I would pay for the food for us to and from there, and she happily agreed. We went and had a blast. I got a pretty good tan, we ate lots of buffet food, swam at the beach, and did fun family, kid-friendly type activities all weekend before coming back. Her kids are super sweet, and it didn't feel like I was babysitting at all, even when I was helping Megan with them. After I got home, I posted some pics I took, nothing in your face, just a couple cute ones of me and us on the beach. And before lunch even rolled around on my first day back at work, Sis was blowing up my phone. I knew ignoring her calls would just prolong the inevitable, so I answered. I barely got past, hey, before she was asking me how the hell I could afford a vacation. I told her it was a raffle prize. She asked who won, me or my friend. And I said, me. I don't enjoy lying. It stresses me out. She proceeded to flip her lid, demanding to know why I hadn't invited her. I was honest and said because I didn't want to end up babysitting her kids for my entire vacation. She got mad and called me an a-hole, then said I knew she needed a vacation, and then hung up on me before I could reply. I just sighed and continued working. Later, while I was leaving work, our mom called me asking me why I'd promised my niece and nephew I'd take them on vacation. I said I never told them I would. I hadn't even spoken to them since the last time I visited. Turns out, Sis told them we were all supposed to go on a beach vacation together, but I ruined it and now they didn't get to go. So my niece and nephew sobbed all day. It took our mom ages to get them to stop crying long enough to explain what was wrong. I told my mom my side, and she said I was meant to not invite Sis, niece, and nephew. But she dropped it after I said I told her I didn't invite them because I didn't feel like babysitting my whole vacation. Mom also tore into Sis for lying to her and also hurting her kids' feelings like that. Getting their hopes up about a vacation and then dashing them by saying I ruined it and they couldn't go. I wasn't there, but Mom said Sis threw a huge fit and basically trashed me all afternoon. The only thing I really felt bad about was my sister getting niece and nephew's hopes up like that. That's the exact reason I never said anything to them. But to cheer them up, I took them the next weekend to a kid's play place. They're always on their best behavior with me, because they know I don't play like their mom, and I will turn my car around and take them home if they're bratty when they're with me. So they got to eat pizza, play games, climb this huge indoor jungle gym thing, and even ride a couple of kiddie rides. I also sat down with them while they ate and explained that the trip I went on was for me and my friend, and they wouldn't have liked it because it got so hot and sweaty. They handled it very well. No tears or anything. Great. Sounds like you got the situation handled. And the way the sister treated everything by lying to the kids to try and guilt trip this person was just proof that it wouldn't have been a good time if she had taken sis and the niece and nephew on a trip. And I don't know, do you think it was something that the sis did to get this woman to take the niece and nephew to this little trip to the play place? Was it a long con? Or do you think she was smart enough to think that far ahead? Let me know. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's female friend, he might be your best friend, but you're not his? Long story short, my husband has one of those female friends. I'll call her Sarah. Her and I get along fine, but every once in a while she'll make a comment or sit a little too close or touch him a lot, or compete with me on how close they are, or how well she knows him. She's one in a big group of about 11 friends. I've talked to my husband about her several times, but it's so many microactions that it's hard to tell her off for one singular thing without looking crazy. Well, this past weekend, the group of friends got together for the first time since we're now all boosted. My husband and I eloped a few weeks ago, and this was the first time most were seeing us since. Sarah came right up and got in our faces as the group was congratulating us to tell my husband how disappointed she was in him for not telling her about our ceremony, not inviting her, and not even sending her a photo. He told her nobody except our parents knew, nobody was invited, and we don't have our professional photos back. This girl started sobbing. How could he do this to her? And that she wanted him to be her man of honor when she gets married. She's single. And he didn't even invite her to his, and their friendship now needed some serious TLC to recover. This is in front of a whole group. I couldn't take it anymore and said, he might be your best friend, but you're not his. And this was between me and him. You're not even a consideration. There were some frosty oohs from the crowd, and she left the house. The crowd is split. They were all my husband's friends before I came into the picture, and some think it was uncalled for and that I should have just let my husband handle it. I was mad at the moment, but now I don't know. Too far? It depends on if you were screaming or if you were just standing up for yourself. It really just sounds like you were standing up for yourself and your relationship with your husband. This was not some sort of circumstance where only she was not notified. He tried to explain that only the parents knew. Nobody else was invited. If you were very calm about it, I really don't think you're the a-hole about this, especially with her getting in his face like you were kind of standing up to her. Not really. Story 2. I asked for 3 days off. They asked for a doctor's note, so I have way more than 3 days off. My job is very mentally taxing. I also have my own mental health issues, so I try my best to balance. But I just want to help, so I get caught up taking more responsibilities than I'm actually able to. So a couple of weeks ago, I realized my mental health is in steep decline. I was ignoring the signs to push through, but anyone with mental health issues knows that you can only ignore the signs for so long. I tried to get ahead of a mental crash and talk to my supervisor to tell them that I need 3 days off, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and as I had the weekend off after the days I requested, I figured that it might be enough to get a good rest and reset. I did tell my supervisor why I needed the days, burnout, mental health, and they said they understood and would get back to me. They contacted me back. I say they because right now I technically have 2 supervisors running my division, and say they can probably give me Wednesday and Thursday, but that they couldn't give me Friday. I ask if we can do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday instead, and I could work the Friday, have my long weekend, and that should still be fine. They say they will get back to me. I get a text soon after to ask me to help cover other shifts, and I obviously can't, so I decline. They get back to me the next day. We can get your shifts covered for Wednesday and Thursday, but not Tuesday, and you have to make up the hours. That was the straw. I just broke. I was asking for a break because I was working too much, because it was hard for me to say no. I even call them. They had me on speaker, in tears, and explain even further why I need the days. I have been going through trauma therapy and my mental health has been declining. I had told them that I had spoken to my doctor and that my doctor said I was showing signs of burnout and recommended some days off, which is true, as I had talked to him the day before. All they heard was the doctor and said, "We need a doctor's note." Okay, fine. Good thing I have another appointment. I had to work that day, just defeated because they couldn't find anyone to cover my shifts. I talked to my doctor and he says that he can tell I'm in distress and he put me on 2 weeks of leave immediately. They did not look pleased when I handed in my doctor's note. That was 2 weeks ago. I went back to the doctor and he extended my leave for at least another month. 'Cause, straw broke the camel's back and my mental health just went down the drain. Oh, also, when I gave them my doctor's note with 4 weeks on it, one of them wouldn't even look at me and the other just said, "Oh, doctor's note, thanks." I've been in a place at work where I was physically injured and I have had a doctor's note to be requested to be able to work. And I got the doctor's note and it was just ignored. They said they couldn't allow it anyway. And I'm just glad that they have an employer that has to at least follow doctor's orders on this. I'm glad they got a lot more days off to recuperate. Really great. Story 3. Mom wanted the bowl that I got from my college award, and I'm ticked. I graduated top of my class in college and gave a commencement speech. The award included a brass bowl. My mother literally told me that the bowl was hers and it was her work that earned me that bowl. I'm like, it's a fracking bowl. Show me your degree. She then continued telling people that she paid for my college tuition despite the around $200,000 I took in student loans to pay for my tuition. She also said she took a reverse mortgage on her house to pay for my tuition, but she actually took the reverse mortgage on her house to pay for home appliances, unnecessary repair work, entire landscape projects, a new balcony, new trees and tree removal, driveway repair, purses, etc. And actually, she left me hanging without the money I needed to complete my full degree. Is she trying to just get a court of public opinion to turn against the student? I mean, it sounds like this person was just doing everything themselves, including paying for their college, or at least getting into their own debt for it. I don't see any reason why the mom deserves any part of this award. Why does she want this part of it anyway?
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.